The first thing Lyra learned about humans was a lie. They consume everything, the smugglers had whispered in her ear, their scaled faces curling into cruel amusement. Plants, beasts, even sentience, if they are desperate enough. Lyra didn't know if it was true, but she believed it, because belief was safer than hope. She clutched her child closer as the transport vessel lurched violently through hyperspace. The small bundle in her arms shifted, emitting a soft, trembling chirp. Lyra tightened her hold instinctively, her four slender arms wrapping protectively around the tiny, glowing form. "Quiet, little one," she whispered, her voice barely more than breath. "We must be quiet." Her child, barely a cycle old, pulsed faintly with bioluminescent light, soft blues and purples flickering beneath translucent skin. A beautiful glow, a deadly giveaway. In the cargo hold, beauty was a liability. Around her, dozens of cages lined the walls. Some were empty, some were not. The air was thick with fear. Creatures from a dozen different star systems huddled behind energy bars, some large, some small, some wounded, some already broken. Lyra had stopped looking into their eyes hours ago. Every gaze she met reflected the same thing: despair. They were being transported, sold. And somewhere, in the endless sprawl of human-controlled space, there were rumors, stories of what humans did with exotic species. "They eat anything," the smugglers had said again, laughing. Lyra believed them. The ship dropped out of hyperspace with a violent shudder. Metal groaned. Lights flickered. A few of the captives cried out, their voices echoing in the dim hold. Lyra pressed herself into the corner of her cage, shielding her child with her body. Footsteps echoed above. Heavy, confident. The smugglers. "All right, listen up," a harsh voice barked over the intercom. "We're making a quick stop. Stay quiet, stay still, and maybe you'll fetch a higher price." Laughter followed. The hatch above creaked open, and light spilled into the hold, harsh, white, and blinding after the dim gloom. Shadows stretched across the cages as figures descended the ramp. Lyra's breath caught. They weren't the smugglers. These figures moved differently, disciplined, coordinated. Their armor was sleek, marked with unfamiliar insignias. Their weapons were held low but ready. Humans. Lyra's heart raced. This was it. Her child whimpered softly, sensing her fear. Lyra pressed it closer, her body trembling. "Please," she whispered in her own language, though she knew they wouldn't understand. "Please don't take my child." The humans spread out across the hold, scanning, assessing. One of them, taller than the others, stepped forward. His helmet retracted with a soft hiss, revealing a face Lyra had never seen before. Flat features, soft skin, eyes that scanned the room not with hunger, but with something else. Something she couldn't place. He spoke. "Clear signs of trafficking," he said, his voice calm but edged with anger. "Get medical teams in here. Now." Another human nodded and moved quickly, activating a communicator. "They're helping," a voice whispered from a nearby cage. Lyra didn't believe it. It had to be a trick. Humans were predators. She knew it. The tall human approached her cage slowly, his hands raised, not in threat, but in a strange gesture of peace. "It's okay," he said gently. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. Her instinct screamed anyway. She hissed a low, warning sound, her body flaring slightly as her skin emitted a brighter glow. Her child echoed the reaction with a faint pulse of light. The human paused. He didn't step closer. "Good. Easy," he murmured. Another human approached from behind him. "Sir, these ones are reacting defensively. Should we sedate?" "No," the tall human said firmly. "They've been through enough." He crouched down, lowering himself to her level. Lyra's eyes widened. Predators didn't make themselves smaller. Predators didn't wait. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said, slower this time, as if hoping she might understand. She didn't. But her child did something unexpected. It reached out. A tiny, glowing limb extended from the bundle, stretching toward the human. Lyra gasped. "No," she whispered urgently, pulling the child back. The human froze, his expression shifting, softening. "It's curious," he said quietly. "Sir, we need to move quickly." "I know." He looked back at Lyra, then at her child. And then, slowly, he removed one of his gloves. Lyra tensed. This was it. This was when the predator revealed itself. But instead of lunging, the human extended his bare hand slowly, palm up, stopping just short of the cage's energy barrier. He didn't cross it. He didn't force anything. He simply waited. The child pulsed again, brighter this time. Lyra hesitated. Everything in her told her to pull back, to hide, to protect. But another instinct, one she had almost forgotten, whispered something else. Observe. Slowly, cautiously, she allowed the child to extend its limb again. It touched the energy barrier, and then, carefully, pressed through as the human deactivated it with a flick of his wrist. Lyra froze. The barrier was gone. She could run. But where? The child reached the human's hand. There was a moment, brief, fragile, where everything seemed to hold its breath. Then the child touched him. A soft glow spread across the human skin where contact was made, a faint shimmer of blue light. The human didn't flinch, didn't recoil. He smiled. "It's beautiful," he said. Lyra's breath hitched. Beautiful? Not food. Not prey. Beautiful. The human slowly withdrew his hand, reactivating the barrier. "We're getting you out of here," he said, standing. Lyra didn't understand the words, but she felt something shift inside her. The rescue was swift. Human medics moved through the hold, carefully opening cages, tending to wounds, offering water and nourishment. Some captives resisted. Others collapsed in relief. Lyra stayed still, watching, waiting. When they finally opened her cage, she didn't fight. The tall human was there again. "I'm Captain Elias Ward," he said, placing a hand on his chest. "You're safe now." She didn't understand, but she recognized the gesture. A name. He was giving her his name. She hesitated, then touched her own chest. "Lyra," she whispered. He nodded. "Lyra," he repeated carefully. The way he said it, respectful, precise, sent a strange warmth through her. No one had said her name like that since her home was destroyed. The human vessel was unlike anything she had ever seen. Clean, orderly, quiet. They gave her a private space, a small room with soft lighting and a resting surface. They brought food, carefully selecting items based on scans of her biology. They didn't force anything, didn't cage her, didn't even lock the door. She didn't trust it, not at first, but her child did. The small creature, whom she had named Selly, thrived in the gentle environment. Its glow grew brighter, its movements more energetic, and it seemed drawn to Captain Ward. He visited often. Always slowly, always respectfully. He would sit at a distance, speaking in soft tones, sometimes showing her images on a small device, stars, planets, other beings. Teaching, communicating, learning. Over time, Lyra began to understand. Not just the language, but the truth. Humans were not what she had been told. They were not mindless predators. They were complicated. Capable of violence, yes. She saw it in the way the crew spoke of the smugglers, with anger, with determination, but also capable of compassion, of restraint, of kindness. One day, as she watched Selly crawl toward Ward, reaching for his hand again, Lyra felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Safety. Why did you help us? She spoke slowly, her words halting but clear. Ward looked up, surprised, and then smiled. Because it was the right thing to do, he said. She frowned slightly. Even if we are not your kind? He shook his head. That doesn't matter. She studied him. In my world, strength meant survival. The strong consumed the weak. Ward leaned back slightly, considering. Humans used to think like that too, he admitted. Some still do. Her body tensed. But he continued. We learned something important. What? That strength isn't about what you can take. He looked at Sully, who was now happily gripping one of his fingers. It's about what you choose to protect. Lyra's chest tightened. She looked at her child, then back at him. And you chose to protect us. He nodded. Yeah. There was a long silence. Then Lyra did something she never thought she would. She bowed her head slightly. Thank you, Captain Ward. Weeks passed. The ship traveled through human space, heading toward a safe colony where rescued species could be relocated. Lyra no longer feared every shadow. She walked the corridors, spoke with the crew, learned, and Sully became something of a favorite among the humans. Its glowing form fascinated them. Its gentle nature charmed them. And its bond with Ward grew stronger every day. One evening, as the ship drifted quietly through a field of distant stars, Lyra stood beside Ward at an observation window. You were wrong, she said softly. He raised an eyebrow. About what? She smiled faintly. About humans. He chuckled. Yeah? In what way? She looked out at the stars, her reflection faint in the glass. I feared you would eat my child. Ward blinked, then let out a soft laugh. Yeah, I can see how that would be concerning. She turned to him, her expression serious. But you did not. No, he said gently. You protected her. He nodded. And now, she continued, her voice steady, I will tell others. Others? My people. Those who still live. They fear humans as I did. Ward's expression softened. That might take time. I have time, she said. Sully chirped softly from her arms, its glow pulsing warmly. And I have proof. Ward smiled. Yeah, you do. Ending. Years later, on a distant world now home to many rescued species, a small gathering stood beneath a sky filled with unfamiliar stars. Lyra stood at the center, her posture strong, her presence calm. Beside her stood a grown Sully, no longer a fragile infant, but a radiant being of light and life. Before them, a group of her people listened, fearful, uncertain. Humans are not what we believed, Lyra said, her voice carrying across the crowd. They are not monsters. She paused, letting the words settle. They are something far more dangerous and far more beautiful. A murmur spread through the crowd. They have the power to destroy, she continued, but they choose to protect. She looked up at the stars, remembering. One human saved my child. One human proved that strength is not measured by what you consume, but by what you defend. Sully stepped forward, its glow bright and steady. And because of that choice we live. Far above, unseen but ever watchful, a human ship passed silently through the stars. And on its bridge, an older Captain Elias Ward looked out into the void, unaware that his single act of kindness had changed the fate of an entire species. He simply smiled and continued his journey, because for humans, it was never about being feared. It was about proving again and again that they could be better.